I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting to order for Thursday, August 6, 2026. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky.
Here.
Gary Paul.
Here.
Jay Krieger.
Here.
Mike Skiffington.
Here.
Corey Campbell.
Here.
Chris Atkinson and James Allen are excused.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. I have no changes to the agenda. I need a motion to approve, please.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I need action on the minutes of July 7, 2026 meeting.
Move to approve. I don't think I was here.
Second. I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. Must state your name and address. They're limited to 5 minutes. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named, and the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there any comments from the public related to items not on the agenda? Anybody online or in the audience on items not on tonight's agenda? Moving on. Number 7, items for discussion and possible action. 7A, consider, discuss, act on a requested amendment to the Titletown District Phase 1 Planned Unit Development PUD overlay zoning for a fourth wall sign at Lodge Kohler, 1950 South Ridge Road, parcel VA-48-3. Aaron.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen, bring up an image of the requested signage. There we go. The request from Lodge Kohler is to place a fourth Lodge Kohler branded sign on the west elevation as indicated in the red rectangle you see here, again on the west elevation of the existing building, fronting kind of towards Aaron's Hill, overlooking the rest of Titletown. The request is to enhance visibility for Lodge Kohler and improve wayfinding for their guests and visitors to the district. As the proposed fourth wall sign is located on the west elevation, it would not impact the neighborhoods to the south and really just overlooks the rest of Titletown. Staff didn't have any issues with this. Site Plan Review Committee did recommend approval as well. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. We do have a representative from Lodge Kohler on the line as well if you have a question for him.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
As Aaron said, we had no problem with the site plan, so I'll move to approve the fourth wall sign at Lodge Kohler.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the amendment to the Titletown District PUD for a fourth wall sign at Lodge Kohler. Any questions, concerns, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 7B, consider, discuss, act on ordinance 08-1-26, amending the official floodplain zoning map and ordinance of the Village of Ashwaubenon, Brown County, Wisconsin. Aaron.
All right, I will share my screen again and bring up images of the two maps that are being amended into the floodplain zoning map and ordinance that we administer on behalf of the village. Both of these maps have been approved by the DNR and FEMA already. As part of that approval process, all of the residents that were affected by the proposed changes were also notified, meetings were held, so on and so forth. For the most part, the changes to the floodplain, including the floodway and flood fringe, result in reduced floodplain impacts to the properties. So this is the one for the Ashwaubenon Creek area, and the second one here is for the Highland Ridge area down south of West Main Avenue and Sand Acres Drive. So as noted, there were notices sent out as part of the original requirements from FEMA and DNR. We are sending out our Class 2 public hearing notice in the press times as well, as required by the amendment process under our code and DNR and FEMA requirements. So should the amendment be recommended for approval, it would go to the August Village Board meeting for a public hearing and final action. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
No, I'll just make the motion to recommend approval of ordinance 08-1-26, amending the official floodplain zoning map and ordinance of the Village of Ashwaubenon, Brown County, Wisconsin.
I can second that.
We have a motion and a second to accept ordinance 08-1-26. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 7C, consider, discuss, act on a requested third amendment to the planned unit development PUD overlay zoning for West Point Center at 460 Marina Lane, parcels VA-132-16, VA-132-13, and VA-132-15. Aaron?
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen again, just to bring up the requested PUD amendment. Okay. So if you recall, back in June, there was a request for a second amendment that came through Plan Commission and Village Board that revised the previously approved First Amendment to the planned unit development for West Point Center that identified this area, and I'll just bring it up here. So this is the currently approved planned unit development for the property. We have the CBRF memory care under construction, the senior apartments without any kind of a supportive housing designation, so 55 plus, pickleball court, and then a large green space area right here. So that was submitted as a requested revision for the Second Amendment to the planned unit development for West Point Center. Following approval of that, we did receive a request for a Third Amendment to the West Point Center planned unit development that does replace the green space with the community-based residential facility assisted living development. You see here this L-shaped building that was originally removed from the Second Amendment following discussion between the Village Board and the developer. The 55-plus senior apartments still do not have a supportive housing designation. And I also should note that the pickleball court that was up here has been removed as well. Those are the primary changes, I guess, from the currently approved one. The Second Amendment to this proposed Third Amendment, again, is the addition of the CBRF assisted living building right here. In terms of, there were some concerns from the original Second Amendment, the requested Second Amendment from public safety regarding impacts of this amount of supportive housing on their ability to provide services, as well as is noted in the staff report. There's some concerns regarding meeting the PUD objectives that are identified in the code, as well as maybe inconsistencies with the comprehensive plan. In terms of recommended conditions of approval, I'll just read those for the record. All parking areas, landscape islands, and drive areas are to have curbing, either conventional, curb, pan, or rolled. Screen any rooftop or ground-mounted mechanical units visible from the property boundaries or South Broadway or Marina Lane rights-of-way. Work with a qualified environmental consultant to remain in compliance with DNR voluntary party liability exemption for closed case 0605343470 throughout utility taps, construction, and restoration. Use full cutoff and shielded lighting to prevent glare into the hotel windows to the east. Siding materials are to be engineered wood or cement board. Lap siding is limited to no more than 25% of the surface area of any one elevation. Meet all applicable requirements of the Ashwaubenon site plan review and all other applicable village ordinances. From engineering, revise the grading plan along the north property line to include a swale so runoff stays on site and is treated by the existing storm pond. Indicate where the sanitary sewer holding tank grease trap is located on the utility plan per building if required. Complete maintenance on the stormwater pond, including trash, sediment, vegetation removal, etc. Update the stormwater management plan with the new utility layout. Revise the grading plan along the north property line to include a swale so the runoff stays on site and is treated by the existing storm pond, as noted earlier. From Public Safety, Police, and Fire, the fire sprinkler system shall be equipped with a Stores-type fire department connection located on the front address side of the building. All new buildings are required to have Knox key box installed 5 feet from grade, within 5 feet of the front main entrance on the address side of each building. And private fire hydrants should not be located within 40 feet of any building. Fire hydrants shall be no more than 10 feet, no less than 5 feet from the curb or edge of the fire apparatus, access road, or fire lane. Fire hydrants located in parking lot island shall be a minimum of 3.5 feet from the center of the hydrant to the curb. Site Plan Review Committee did recommend approval of the site plan. Again, they review the site plan and the overall exterior materials only, so not reviewing it in terms of the policy provisions of the PUD. Their recommendation of approval did include a condition that the PUD be approved by the village board for that site plan to also be approved. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or to do have representatives of the development team in the audience as well.
Okay. Does
So
anybody-
Aaron, if I'm to understand this correctly, this looks very, very similar to the initial proposal, which we objected to, mostly based on public safety's recommendation, and I'm assuming that public safety still has the same stance in this?
Yeah, and I'm here on behalf of Chief Baxter, who was at the April meeting, but he was unable to be here tonight. I'm Deputy Chief Nick Kozlowski, but yes, the position that we would hold has not changed since the April meeting.
Okay. All right. So I'm really not seeing anything has significantly changed. I guess what I would like to do is open the floor and hear from your team how you see that this is different from what was proposed initially that we said was not acceptable. So I'll make a motion to open the floor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Somebody would like to come up from the design team that would like to answer the questions? Yep, if you would like to come up, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name and address, let me see. Oh, yes, my name is Ted Hunt. I am with the Greenwind Development Group and also the managing member of a number of these, the different operations we've been looking at. We've had many conversations. Essentially, let me tell you what's occurred as to why we're back here, if I may. It's relatively straightforward. We're confused. We've had a lot of people, and we have a lot of people involved in terms of the investors. All the professionals have been around, and following our previous submissions to you, then a lot of pressure came back on us saying, wait a minute, you should be allowed, you should be able to do this, market demands, market considerations. So we essentially had some advice from different sources, which was suggesting we should come back with a reopening of the conversation. We did have conversations with the chief as well as with staff as well as with you from our tenant with what we thought were very strong arguments in terms of proving the point that the operations that we would have in place in this community that we're trying to create were more mitigating concerns about the assistance that may be required as opposed to stats that exist today, because the stats are far broader than what it is we're looking at in terms of building. So in many respects, I'm here tonight sitting down with all kinds of advice that we should be back talking to you. What I would like to be able
All
to do
kinds of advice from investors.
we have groups, we have a number of legal people that are involved with us. We have the investors who are all senior business people. We have other developers that have worked both within the village and other areas in the greater Green Bay area. And quite honestly, I've been told so many different things, I couldn't tell you what in fact exists, other than maybe as recently as sometime today, in the last 2 days, a meeting with Joel and Aaron and Ashley earlier this week. Was it this week? Yes, it was Tuesday. And even then, we're not being filled with hope by anybody that this should be opened up again. But what we do have is we have land. We have the start now of the senior considerations between the memory care, between the 55 plus. We have one piece of land left that ultimately needs to be developed one way or another. I would like to come back to you and say, we believe strongly, now this is my belief, that the need within the neighborhood, within the community, within even the Northeast Wisconsin, if you will, but primarily for within the village. And we're seeing this because of actual circumstances of applications that are coming through and coming to our office, family members within our office, whose father, for instance, has been out within the assisted living. I have my son's grandmother-in-law who's just been put into assisted living. And what we are finding is that within the community, there are not enough facilities available. There are not facilities available at the level of service that we're prepared to offer. We believe, again, that if we brought back more statistical information in terms of the mitigation that we can provide in terms of what's required by the special departments and the chief, and even the conversation with the chief, the very first time, I'm sure that Joel and Aaron will suggest that he was seeing a different version of what he was accustomed to on a personal basis. He was seeing some daylight, if you will, as to the way in which our operator, who you folks met at one of our last meetings, and I mean, she has worked well within the whole CBRF and the state for a long time, and is providing services that go above and beyond. So if nothing else, what we would like to say to you is we still have a process that we can continue to go through. We think that the neighborhood, the village, the people, the seniors in the area have a requirement that we can provide, creating a very good seniors community that would not be a burden but would be an asset. So we are back in a sense of saying, what is it that we can do to help take this next level? We've got the 55 plus, we've got the memory care. CBRF covers other areas. The services that we provide are such that they should be, they would perform well for the community, and we don't think would, and we can start looking at what it is that we can do to help improve that, to satisfy the needs that you folks are saying, because I'm not sure that we are all yet presenting what the needs are for the community and what it is that we can provide.
I'm still really struggling with why you're coming back with the exact proposal that we said, was not acceptable based on where we are right now in the village of Ashwaubenon and public safety, all the safety. I am not talking about need or whatever, but why would you not go ahead with what was approved, put that up, start actually helping your investors to recoup their money, things like that right now based on what you have?
That's what we are.
So something's telling me I'm not hearing the full story. I'm sorry.
Well, okay. Well,
Something's telling me that your investors are not happy, and there is going to be a loss of revenue here
No.
to them.
No.
Because otherwise, why are you back proposing the same thing that we've already have rejected? That's what I'm saying, is I'm not finding a reason.
I understand that. I don't know that I took it as a rejection. I took it that you wanted us to move to the 55 plus. You were not satisfied with all of the considerations that were being put in place for that CBRF being the assisted living, primarily because of the services from EMS that were going to be required.
We made it clear. We couldn't make it any clearer.
Well,
That was asked about by many.
We've also had a number of people on the legal side that have said that there were considerations that the PUD overlying the zoning of B3, that the zoning of B3 did allow this, and that in a consideration where we expanded on the benefits to be gained and the services that we could provide and mitigate services, that it could be, again, given consideration because the underlying zoning did appropriate. We had two lawyers in your offices here this week, one from our side, one from your side, taking positions of PUDs are to expand considerations, not to restrict, and then we had the reverse position of it is restricting. That's the first we heard of it. That made it difficult for us because we thought we were on a track that maybe we could be coming back with a consideration because we've gotten here with 55 plus, we're over here with memory care, we've got a piece of land in the middle that ultimately is going to meet some consideration, and we wanted to reassess that opportunity. And so you say reject, I don't disagree with the reject, but I heard in the rejection of let's go here, let's go there, and let's see what we can do in the middle. I mean, we're not talking about parking space or.
You haven't even started the other building. That's why I'm really still struggling with your.
I understand.
I literally struggle to accept
Yeah.
what you're trying to tell me because you have two facilities that are going to bring revenue that are, so we haven't absolutely said no to you. We just said no because we have a concern with public safety in all of Ashwaubenon with that other unit. We all agreed to that. The village board agreed to that. You guys understood that. You actually proposed, that's the way it all moved forward. Now you're coming back again. The only thing I can think of is your investors said, you know what, we're not getting a return, so.
I will unequivocally, on a Bible, swear to the fact that is not a consideration.
Okay.
This is not a
Then I
financial, this is
don't
not a financial
understand why you're not
consideration.
moving forward with what you got.
I'm sorry?
And I don't understand why you're not moving forward with what you got.
We are moving forward. We fully expect to be under construction in September on the 55 plus. We're not looking in place of, we're looking in addition to, which would be the completion of a senior living community, servicing this neighborhood in a fashion that is really required. More of information constantly is coming to us. The information from our investors, the information that we have directly from family, just like you had me ambulance, a couple of meetings ago. We're having personal experiences. We're having research coming to us. We're having our tenant having new research because they're expanding their considerations of what they can do and how it can be done. And all we're seeing is that we believe that the village will benefit if we can find a way to make this next step within the senior living community.
Okay. Can I just interrupt this conversation here so we don't keep going in circles? It was at the Plan Commission meeting, somebody on the Plan Commission board made the comment to you about this green space that's here is not going to be an assisted living. And Aaron said it cannot be an assisted living unless it comes back with a PUD amendment. When that plan with the green space went to village board, somebody at village board said, this green space is not going to become an assisted living. And Aaron again said, no, it would have to come back to village board. So I don't know how much clearer it needs to be stated that the Plan Commission did not want the green space to be an assisted living, and the village board did not want the green space to be an assisted living. So it is, now you have now proposed the green space to become an assisted living. So that is where Jay is coming from when he says, what has changed from the original one that we said no to? Because we did adopt the one with the memory care and the 55 and older. That is just non-supportive housing for 55 and older.
We moved again on the advice that other people have been giving us and being relatively new to the area and to the village and to this process, that perhaps there was a route in which we could be following, that we would be able to come back. I will understand completely, and I will ask only one thing. Is there further consideration of what we can do on that site within the senior capacity that is going to better serve the community than green space at the moment. I mean, we can find business and industry and zoning and everything else, that land will develop something. Our strong feeling is that we thought there was an opportunity to have a discussion, to bring it back for further consideration because of the new information that I had been given at the time. Apparently not applicable. Where we thought it was, it is not. I found out half an hour ago that it's not applicable. I apologize for that part. I was given a lot of strong advice that it was. So if anything I can leave you with tonight is we've heard of other situations, a lot of anecdotal evidence as to what's going on with wives and families that are not being serviced within the region, with mothers that were in homes and concerns about ambulances, and then there wasn't any ambulances to be seen, and family considerations, and everything was coming about from a personal sense. We're finding a whole lot more from a very business-like market research, market demand, personal experience.
Ted, I don't think anybody up here would dispute the fact that there isn't a need for more assisted living in the entire state of Wisconsin. Nobody would say that.
In the country, there are two countries.
However, in talking with our public safety, their concerns are the entire village of Ashwaubenon and what they're being pressed on from the paramedic side. So that is where our concerns come from. It's not the need. It has nothing to do with the need. It has to do with the supportive housing that occupies a lot of our officers, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think Chief Baxter covered that at the April meeting pertaining to the percentage of calls that originate from these types of facilities in the village already. Some of them somewhere between 20 and 25%. One thing, as I was looking at the numbers today, preparing for this meeting, that I also wanted to express is kind of the bigger picture and kind of the trajectory that we have right now in the village. And it's not just isolated to the village, that we're seeing these numbers countywide, regionally, is the percentage of increase in EMS calls. So over the last 10 or so years, we've gone up 75% in EMS calls alone, which is much, much higher than even like police or fire calls, which have kind of remained stagnant over the last 10 years. There hasn't been a big increase like there has been for EMS. In 2016, we had a total of 1,366 calls for service for EMS, and we kept the high water mark in 2024 at 2,400, which is where I got the 75% from. So in that 10 years, our staffing has only increased 10%. So we are asking our public safety officers to do a lot more with a lot less, and we've been working on that by adding staff, and that doesn't go unrecognized, but ultimately adding facilities like this are only going to increase that number and make things obviously worse as far as call volume goes.
So because of that, have you asked in a budget to increase the number of EMTs, et cetera, or at least look at the future and say, based on the statistics, we should add X number of people?
We have, and like I said, over the last 5 years or so, we've added about 10% of our staff over what we previously had.
And it's still not covering it.
Well, adding the numbers is one thing. Finding those people to fill those numbers is another. We've been authorized at 56 sworn officers now for, I believe, at least 3 years. We have yet to hit 56 because of issues with hiring and finding qualified people that can pass background checks and do everything that we're asking them to do. So that's really what's kind of been hindering us the last few years, is just the current status of the hiring market.
I'm just throwing this out. You were here last time when I talked about my wife at St. Paul's. They're looking at a $45 to $50 million expansion in Kaukauna. A year and a half of affecting the residents, but the demand is there.
The demand, like I said, it's all over the
Nothing to
state,
do with the
Mike.
need and the demand.
Right. Joel?
Yeah, just want to add some context to kind of the process of approval too, just to make sure we're clear. Certainly we want to understand and recognize some of the demands of service from public safety, but when a planned development district, or in our case, how we identify those as a plan unit development under our code, It's a special district that's established as a zoning district. It does not necessarily on its own provide an overlay to an existing district. It's a special district as defined under state statutes under Chapter 62, and the zoning laws established by the state of Wisconsin. So it's its own special district. It's created with the consent of the owner, and it's created based on a certain condition and parameters. Now, oftentimes, we use the base zoning as part of the write-up to the zoning ordinance for the PUD. Otherwise, Aaron is going to be spent taking, for a planned unit development, basically our entire zoning code and enveloping it into a written ordinance. So that 3-page ordinance that you're adopting will become a 50-page ordinance that takes into account all of the elements of our existing zoning code in addition to the elements that are going to be included in the special district. So I think there's some confusion that this is some kind of overlay and the underlining zoning is the base and then we're just adding elements to it to allow certain uses. That's not the case. It is a special district. It's a district under its own accord, under 6223 of Wisconsin state statutes, and it establishes its own parameters, its own uses, its own standards for development, and so on and so forth. And what I want to touch on with that is that when a plan unit development is proposed, an ordinance is established. And when that ordinance is established, it sets the base, the foundation for that district.
No.
One of the arguments that was brought up previously is that we've had a series of amendments, and each series of amendments proposed does not maintain the use and character of the original established PUD. If you go back to the original plan unit development, you certainly did have a supportive housing element with the memory care, but you also had a larger apartment building, multifamily apartment building, and to a lesser extent, owner-occupied condominiums on the parcel as well. And as each amendment has come in, we've removed some of those more diverse housing options within the plan unit development, and we're adding more and more supportive housing. And so that was one of the concerns that I think the Plan Commission, but to a larger part, the Village Board had concerns is that the original PUD was a more diverse development that had mixes of uses, mixed populations. It was going to add some dynamic nature to the riverfront, which was a desire by the board. It's been outlined in our comprehensive plan that this is a kind of a special area of the village and that we wanted to have a mixture of uses and densities to encourage more of that robust and vibrant nature of activity within the waterfront. And I think that is where the board has expressed its concerns in addition to public safety, is that it kind of removes that vibrancy by having more supportive housing. And so the businesses, the restaurants, the things of that nature, the uses of that nature that we want to locate on the waterfront and activate and engage require more active housing, right? More active uses. And the supportive housing isn't going to be consistent with that character that I think the board is wishing to establish based on its comprehensive plan and based on feedback that the board has had in the past. And so I think that's a component of your decision as well, is that you created this special district to allow for a mixture of uses that would otherwise be to some degree incompatible with each other based on what is our standard zoning for those districts, because we're adding some residential to business districts and business within a residential area or neighborhood. And so that plan unit development would allow for that to occur and to ensure that you have that compatibility amongst different uses within the district to create that vibrancy and that diversity in use.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for Ted? If not,
I'll make a motion to close the floor.
Second.
Excuse me.
excuse me. Oh, okay.
Okay.
But we'd have to close the floor first before the vote.
We'll have to close the floor
Yeah,
before the
that's what
vote,
I'm saying.
but we didn't even, we had a second. Do I have to?
I would just ask the two that made the motion to withdraw their
I'll
motion.
withdraw the motion.
Okay, Gary? Yep,
So,
okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
Brian Flood, I'm with DeWitt LLP here in Ashwaubenon, and I am counsel for Baymar. And I wanted to address a couple of different things before discussion was closed. The first one going to the public safety. It's my understanding, and I am not in any way trying to argue or impugn or any way say that what information has been provided is incorrect, but only to say that information has not been provided to us. At least to my understanding, we have not been provided with the data that's being relied upon by public safety to discuss why and how essentially the EMTs, from my understanding, are going to be stretched a little more thin, and how those calls are going to be increased as a result of this facility. And as a result of us not being able to go into and look specifically at that data, it's difficult for us to actually discuss that and provide our opinions as to how to best address it and whether or not it's applicable to what we are requesting. You know, things, for instance, I look at this just from the outside and take a look and say, well, Ashwaubenon, our population is aging. And I think everyone's already discussed the fact that no one is disagreeing that there is a need for these type of facilities because our population is aging. And whether or not it's been looked at and discussed, is it better for public safety, for instance, to have a central location where the aging population is, or to have them surrounded throughout the entire village? What is going to be more taxing on public safety? Having a single locus for them to go to, or having to have calls throughout the entire village? Things like that we could take a look at and discuss with the board and the planning commission in relation to the issue with the public safety issues. And so from that perspective, I think it would be both beneficial for us as well as for the board if we had that information, could look at that data, make determinations, and quite frankly, determine whether or not public safety is absolutely correct, and we don't have any arguments as to why this facility wouldn't increase it, or look at it and make determinations as to, well, here's maybe where our data point isn't applicable to what the uses we're looking at. Here is maybe perhaps if they have hospitals or clinics as part of their data points, those are services that are not being provided, and have a more informed discussion with the board as to those public safety issues.
Let me just stop you there for a minute, Brian, because I'm probably going to say something. Nick is probably the only person that will remember this. We had people who were supposed experts in how to look at data with public safety. They came in here, they did an analysis, and they told us all the things that we needed to do to make everything more efficient and better for our public safety officers. And I'm here to tell you, I sit in the end office, and when I have officers come in to me and tell me that they were at that time on 24-hour shift, and they're out on their road shift, they get back, they're now in their paramedic mode. In their paramedic time, they go on 8 calls. You're talking at least an hour and a half on each call. So then when do they sleep? Because they're on a 24-hour shift. So when you have people that are analyzing data that don't live that data like my officers live that data, I have questions on that. But I digress. Nick, are you with me on that?
Yeah, and I mean, some of the data, like the number of calls per year is actually available right on the village website on our public safety annual report. I pulled those right from the 2025 report, which went back to 2016 with those numbers. So they are available to you if you look at our annual report. The specific numbers as far as EMS call by location, those aren't obviously publicly available, but they are recorded in our RMS system. But they did include some of the urgent care facilities, and I understand that that's not necessarily what services you are providing, but it's still facilities that we need to respond to, and it's part of our call volume and part of our workload. So I think while it's not relevant to the service you're providing, it's relevant to us because it still affects our workload and our ability to respond to residents of the village and to your facility. And so that's why I think it's still relevant.
Wouldn't it be though that if as we are hoping, the facilities are gonna be serving the residents of Ashwaubenon, that the call volume, whether they are,
Yeah, but you have no way of doing that. You're not gonna limit somebody coming through that door to say, well, you resident of Ashwaubenon, and then we're gonna take you? No, that isn't gonna happen.
I don't disagree, but it also is we're putting it in Ashwaubenon for a reason. And so if we're taking a look at, we're looking at the aging population, and if there's calls based on the aging population, and those call volumes are going up because our population is getting older, is it really affected if you have to go to their private home, or whether or not you have to go to a facility like this? That was the point I was gonna make.
But you're also gonna be bringing people in that aren't from Ashwaubenon, so there'll be additional calls to those people that aren't Ashwaubenon residents.
That's also an assumption.
Correct.
So I mean,
They'd be
it's,
residents once they're here.
yeah, I mean, it goes both ways.
So, we're basing it on the availability of our public safety and their ability to service Ashwaubenon in every way, not just your type of facility that you're proposing. That's what our concern is. We, every year in our budget, are looking to expand, to make our public safety, to have more, to be able to offer those services. But we additionally have to balance that against taxes, against what else is going on within the village and what services, additional services that we need to provide overall. So this is a point, and yeah, we don't want to be drawing lines all over the place, but this is a point where I feel, yeah, we have to draw a line right here. I will make the statement that doesn't mean that somewhere down in the future, we now can fill all 56. We can have maybe 60 some, and maybe there's more. We do have the additional capacity, but at this point in time and in the near future, don't see that capacity being there. And it's going to impact the residents of Ashwaubenon. That's why we aren't objecting to your proposal. We are objecting to what it might do to all the rest of the residents of Ashwaubenon. And I get that some of them are going to be very happy because maybe they can have their loved one right here, but we also have everybody else and everything else that's going on in the village that we have to be concerned about. So it's a difficult thing. And we don't take it lightly. I'm not taking this lightly. I'm just saying it's just, we are getting a recommendation that it's just gonna push us over the edge. And we've seen that where we are now pulling in other resources from De Pere, from Green Bay, to service Ashwaubenon. And we can't get in that situation.
Well, I think what I was looking at then was whether or not if we were able to take a look at the data, which it sounds like it could be publicly available, whether or not we could take a look and then provide information prior to the board making a decision as to how our consultants look at what that volume would look like, so that the board has information to make the decision on what type of increase it could cause and what that could mean to public safety. As opposed to, I could come here and say, oh, it's not going to increase at all. I will tell you, I have no clue whether it's going to increase at all. And I would say that public safety does have information which they're relying on to say it is increased. But I think it is something that it's important to allow us to also take a look at that and then provide information to the board as to how we see it's going to increase, what volume would increase, those type of things, so that the board then would have both sides, and they may be the same side, but they would have both sides, and then be able to make an informed choice on our request, as opposed to simply denying it without that additional information. That's what I was asking for in relation to public safety. In terms of the comprehensive plan and the comments regarding the use, there was a discussion about whether there was a series. This is the third amendment, so I guess it becomes definitional as to what a series is and how often these are being changed. But in terms of the use, at least as to the current ordinance and the current PUD, the character isn't changing. It is a facility and a development for older residents of Ashwaubenon. That's not changing. That's not changing from the Second Amendment to the Third Amendment. So
Adding assisted living to the plan does change it. Taking out the pickleball courts does change it. Taking out the swimming pools
We haven't taken the pickleball.
does change it. So it does change it. So when you say it doesn't change, it does change.
But the pickleball courts are already out. So that's not changing from second to third. I guess it depends on what.
They were approved in the last plan that we approved. There were pickleball
Yep.
courts in it. So,
We didn't take it out. It's not in this one, it's in the approved one. It's in the 55 plus approved.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
correct, but it's not in the one that you are asking us to approve tonight.
But the
It's not in,
site will still have a pickleball court.
but it's not in the plan that
Not in the plan.
that we are asking us to approve. So it's not in the plan.
But we're not eliminating it.
Well, it's not in the plan, Ted.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It's not
I'm
it.
sorry, Aaron, is it
So-
in the plan?
It is not shown physically within the plan set that was provided to us. It does show the 55 plus age-restricted apartment building, but it does not show any of the amenities that were included in the most previously approved amendment to the PUD.
Okay, well, we have not removed it. We just obviously didn't put it in where my feeling when we looked at it was we've had a plan that approved a pickleball court to be associated to the 55 plus. This was talking about a separate situation, therefore almost had an interpretation. If we put in one, then we would have had two pickleball courts. One pickleball court is all we've ever discussed. I mean, we can show it on the plan for you. That's not a problem.
Anyway, it's not in the plan that you have asked us to approve tonight. So it's not in what you're asking for.
But it's already been approved.
If you go back to that plan, but that's with green space. That's not with the assisted living. We don't layer the plans on top of each other. Every time you come with a PUD amendment, you get a new plan
New plan.
that gets approved.
Okay, misinterpretation, we apologize,
So-
and please understand, we have not removed it. It's still in the plan as far as we're concerned, in the sense that we're providing as requested.
Anyway, so I encourage you to go where Nick told you to go to get the information, but it won't give you complete information that you're gonna need, but.
Yeah, it gives high overview, like number of EMS calls per year by year for the last,
Right.
9 or 10 years. The other information as far as how many EMS calls we've had at care facilities, that's information that could be provided through freedom of information or things like that through attorneys. But I guess my question about that is the bigger question mark in my mind is not so much the calls that we respond to, it's how many calls is this facility, as it's being proposed today, going to add to our call volume? That's the bigger question, because that's the crux of why we're here and what this discussion is happening. And there's a lot of variables that can go into that. The type of people you're bringing in, the medical issues that they have, the capabilities of the staff, the policies of the facility. I mean, we've heard, I don't know what the policies are of this group here that's coming in, but you've got facilities that are not allowing staff to perform lift assists because of workers' comp issues and throwing out backs and lifting patients. So they call the fire department to just pick a patient up off the floor so that they can avoid paying out workman's comp and injury, things like that. I'm not saying that's what you guys do, but this is what fire departments across the nation are having to deal with these assisted care and living facilities that really has a major impact on call volumes.
And then it sounds to me as if there needs to be more discussion from our group and public safety, and it maybe is a little premature for public safety to provide a recommendation if they don't have all the information from us. And you acknowledge that there are variables that would go into that call volume and how that would be affected by our facility.
Well, but what you have to also remember, Brian, at this point is we don't just service these types of facilities. We have 15 facilities in our community that we are called to. Plus, we have a casino and we have an airport. So we are called to all those calls. So when you have, what, Nick, maybe 9 people on a shift? And you have,
Yeah, it's somewhere between 10 and 12, but with people taking off for vacations, we are
Right.
down to 9 fairly
Right.
regularly.
when you have 9 people on a shift and you need 3 people in the ambulance, that's where our concern is. So it doesn't matter, if, when you think it's just your facility, we have 15 facilities that, other than just our residents. So that's where the volume issue comes in.
No, and I absolutely understand that, and I understand that we need to look at Ashwaubenon as a whole, and we need to look at how our facility and how our proposed addition to the facility would affect Ashwaubenon as a whole. My comment is, if public safety is saying, because of the type of facility you have, we expect there to be an increase in call volume, which will affect public safety's ability to provide service to other residents of Ashwaubenon. But then they don't have the full information and or a full understanding of what we are going to be providing, then I think it is premature for public safety to provide a recommendation one way or the other.
Can I stop you right there, though? Because you're literally saying because that's our job. Our job is to look at the holistic Ashwaubenon and make the decision as to whether this is going to be able to be supported in a good facility for Ashwaubenon. That's not for you to decide. And that's what you were just said. We want to get all this information so that we can decide how we fit in the community. That's our job. That's our job in the village boards. That's what we do. You bring your proposal, we decide how it fits. So I kind of, yeah, you can tell by the tone of my voice, that kind of upsets me a little bit, because that's not your job.
And I never said it was my job. What I said was, and you had said earlier, that one of the biggest lines that you have regarding this facility is public safety. And I don't think I'm misinterpreting what you said earlier.
You're not.
Okay. And it was at least my impression that your decision based on public safety was also based on the recommendation received from public safety as to how this facility would affect Ashwaubenon.
Correct. And why do you think that you are smarter than our public safety who lives this on a day-to-day basis?
I am not saying I am smarter, and I'm not. What I am saying is that what I heard just recently was there are a lot of variables and unknowns right now between our facility and public safety. And as a result, my comment was perhaps it would make sense for us to talk to public safety to provide information to them, because otherwise, if they don't have the full story, I think their recommendation is premature. Because if they are basing it on other facilities that ours may not be like, and data then from those facilities that ours may not be like, then their recommendation may not be correct. I'm not saying it isn't correct. I am just saying it may be premature based on a lack of information and dialogue between our group and public safety. Honestly, we could talk to them and we could provide them all the information, and they may come back and say it doesn't change their recommendation.
Yeah, and if I may just interject a little bit here. So we have had that conversation when the operators from Silverstone were in, Ted and his team met with Chief Baxter, and Nick's been being put on the spot here today in substitution for Chief Baxter. But we did have those conversations. We had a number of concerns that we presented to them about policies as it relates to how they operate the supportive care aspects of their facilities, from lifting requirements to the qualifications of staff, nurse. We talked about on-site doctors, on-call doctor systems, things of that nature. We had a variety of those conversations, and although the operators certainly seem very competent and capable of operating a very well-run facility, I don't know that that necessarily changed the chief's concerns, and that's why those same concerns were presented at the last Plan Commission and Village Board meeting. Again, not as a concern for the operator. I want to take the operator out of it. I think the concern is the density of the population that we would be serving. And then, quite frank, the operator can certainly develop and build and in 2 years sell, and we have a different operator with completely different policies, but yet we're still working and serving that same population. So I think there's some concerns there. To the point of the commission ultimately tonight is here to make a recommendation to Village Board. Village Board will have final authority to grant the amendment. Under statutory law, under 6223, which is the sub 7, which is the zoning law, the Village Board ultimately, through the recommendation of the committee, is establishing this special district with the parameters that are within the district to promote health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the entire community. And that's going to relate to not only building setbacks and building heights and dimensional requirements and things of that nature that you'll see, but also the uses of those buildings and structures within that district. So again, I just kind of want to bring that back to you're really focused on the use and character of the overall district, and whether or not that use and character is going to have potentially a detrimental effect on that health, safety, and welfare of the entire community. And so that's what you're going to be basing your decision on tonight. You have the authority as a commission to make that recommendation, and the board has the discretionary authority to make the final decision on that.
Can you go with that and say, okay, here's the elements, here's the big complex down the end of the street here, the library apartments, with how much that's going to impact you with this bigger density of people? Well, I would assume our population is going up based on all of these.
It is, but
Big-
those are not supportive housing, Mike.
I understand that.
Right.
But they still expect him to get a call.
Yeah, I think that, and Nick can touch on a very specific industry basis wise. I think you look at the type of population and the call volume by density of that population, right?
Right.
So these are residential households. Are we increasing the number of units of residential households? Yes. Generally, these are not supportive housing type units. These individuals don't generally demand the same call volume.
You're not looking at a big increase of the fact that you have these.
So if you have an assisted living facility that has 24 beds, and you assume that each of those beds represents, in theory, a household,
Okay.
what is the typical household demand for call volume? And the data that Nick can run on assisted living type facilities or community-based residential facilities, the demand per unit is going to be much higher than any other single family or even multifamily development within the community.
If this proposal had come in initially, it probably would not have passed.
It didn't.
I'm talking about before they started building anything down there. If it came in like this.
If this would have been the original PUD,
Yeah, no.
no.
No, because of the same thing, because public safety had the same concern. I mean, the initial one had condominiums on the river and everything. So,
Did you want to say something, Nick?
No, I mean,
Oh,
just to
okay.
agree, I mean, I get there's some question as to how many calls are going to be created, but the fact is, we know that the call volume will increase. And given the nature of the business that's being operated, it's going to be more than a regular single-family household, kind of to Joel's point.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions, or we can close the floor?
I'll make a motion to close the floor.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the floor. So we're closing the floor.
We gotta get together again.
I'm
We-
sorry, I
we
missed
are-
that last part.
We are closing the floor.
Fair enough.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Again,
Opposed?
we thank you for your.
Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend denial of the request for a third amendment to the Plan Unit Development Unit Overlay Zone for West Point Center, 460 Marina Lane, parcels VA-132-16, VA-132-13, and VA-132-15, based on the findings discussed by the Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend denial of the requested third amendment to the planned unit development for 460 Marina Lane. 3 different parcels listed. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, number 8, items for next agenda. Do we have a next agenda?
Offhand, I'm not sure.
Okay,
Stay tuned.
okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.